No one noticed the old soldier's posture in the courtroom, until his medal stunned the judge. Before we begin, let us know in the comments which city you're watching this video from today. The military courtroom in Annapolis, Maryland, was the quiet yet unshakable heart of the American discipline system. On a cool July morning in 2025, the breeze slipped through the tall windows of the courtroom, as everyone inside waited in serious anticipation. Uniformed officers sat lined up, files stacked before them, waiting for the judge to enter. But that day, a piece of history, unplanned and unscripted, was about to unfold. In one of the back rows sat a man who didn't draw much attention. Marv Holloway. Gray-haired, tired-eyed, but still standing tall. His uniform was perfectly worn, neat, spotless. Once a symbol of youth, it now defied time on the shoulders of an aging man. The townspeople called him Uncle Marv. While most knew he had once been a soldier, few remembered the details. The elderly respected him, the young passed by. But that day, his presence in the courtroom held far more than it appeared. It was Emily Carter, a young officer cadet, who noticed him first. His stance, the rhythm of his breath, the resolve in his eyes, from the moment he entered the room, Emily was drawn to him. This man is here for a reason, she thought. Perhaps she recalled the first lesson of military training: true heroes don't make noise. As the trial began, all eyes turned to the front. The judge was examining files when suddenly, he looked up. His gaze landed on Marv. The energy in the room shifted instantly. The judge squinted, his face tensed. For several seconds, only the scratching of pens could be heard. Marv silently rose to his feet. He adjusted his collar, and a medal on his chest caught the light, a golden star with a ribbon, and beneath it, a simple yet heavy date, 1968. The judge's voice was low and measured. "What is that medal, Mr. Holloway?" A few people in the room turned their heads. Emily held her breath. Marv did not answer. He lowered his eyes and placed his right hand over his heart. In military tradition, that gesture is a sign of remembrance, of loss, or deep respect. In that moment, a weight settled over the room. Whispering began. Did he say 1968? Vietnam? Was that a gold star? The officers suddenly fell silent. Because the Gold Star Medal is typically awarded to the families of those killed in action. But it's also known to be given, in rare and secret cases, to members of special units who demonstrated extraordinary sacrifice in missions that were never officially disclosed. And 1968 was the bloodiest year of the Vietnam War. Emily's eyes widened. She understood. This man wasn't just an observer. He was someone who had quietly left his mark on the flow of history. His name might not appear in textbooks, but many lives may have been saved because of him. The judge averted his gaze, as if questioning even his own authority. "Thank you, Mr. Holloway," was all he said. The hearing continued, but no one was truly focused on the case anymore. Only one question echoed in every mind. Who was this man, really? And perhaps most importantly, why had he remained silent all these years? In the courthouse hallway, there was a brief silence. Emily's question echoed faintly against the walls. Marv was lost in thought, as if drifting back to a time long ago. Then he looked at Emily again and slowly began to speak. "My name hasn't been spoken in years. And there's a reason for that." Emily listened intently. "Things happen in Vietnam," Marv said, "but not everyone carries the same weight. That day, our mission was to destroy the base. But the echoes of what we did never go silent." Emily was stunned. Marv continued. "We were given orders, yes. But sometimes an order changes a man's soul. Maybe we saved 200 lives that day, but other lives were destroyed. That's why this medal is not an honor. It's a reminder." Emily lowered her head. "But people should know. They should know the truth," she said. Marv smiled faintly. "People love stories. Heroism. Sacrifice. But real war lives in silence. The medal was given that day, but every hour of sleep I've lost came with it too. Suddenly the courtroom door creaked open. An officer stepped out and scanned both of them. "The trial is resuming," he said firmly. Marv slowly adjusted his uniform. With hands worn by the years, he tucked his medal back in place. "Come," he said to Emily, "let's leave this story here." But Emily's thoughts were racing. That night, she returned to the archives. She dug deeper. More reports. Redacted names. Behind many of them was Marv's former unit. A covert operation. A mission that had gone far beyond enemy lines. And in one document, a small but telling detail. Marv had defied orders to evacuate civilians, and had been disciplined for it. His heroism was recorded. But it had also been silenced. Emily understood in that moment, Marv hadn't just saved lives. He had acted from conscience, not command. And perhaps that's why no one ever told his story. The next morning, Marv was again sitting in the same courtroom row. His eyes bore the weight of years, yet he sat upright. Emily quietly sat next to him. She said nothing. Because now she knew everything. And some stories say more in silence. A question echoed in Emily's mind. Why would such a hero choose to live in the shadows like an ordinary citizen? That night, sitting in the archive room among dusty folders, she began to sense the deeper truth behind Marv's silence. Every document, every broken line revealed that he was more than a soldier, he was a bearer. A bearer of pain, of sacrifice, and perhaps of guilt. The next day, Emily found Marv in the courthouse again. He stood alone by the door to the library. A file in his hand, his face marked by the lines of time. She approached and spoke gently. "I know everything, Captain." Marv looked up. In his eyes there was neither anger nor fear, only a kind of resignation, and perhaps a bit of fatigue. "I don't know what you think you know," he said calmly, "but that war ended long ago." Emily silently handed him the file, the Vietnam raid, the 200 soldiers rescued, the details of the secret mission, even the official commendations, and at the end, the medal documentation. Marv didn't look at the file. "These are just pieces of paper," he said. "Only we know what really happened there. Those who came back, and those who didn't." For a brief moment, his eyes drifted into the distance, as if he was back there again, among the exploding bombs, among the screams of his comrades. Emily said nothing. And in that moment, she began to understand why this man had chosen to remain silent. For some, heroism is not something to be spoken about, it is a burden to carry. But Emily didn't give up. The way he stood when testifying during a case, his timing and interventions, his sharp observational skills, these weren't the traits of an ordinary man. His past was still alive, within these very walls. Even if not for justice, this story had to come to light for the sake of truth and remembrance. In the days that followed, Emily began to learn more about Marv. He had suffered losses not only in war but afterward as well. His wife had passed away from cancer years ago. His son had cut ties with him because of his opposition to military service. After retirement, Marv had taken a small advisory job at the courthouse, living a modest life without revealing his identity. Perhaps he had wanted to slowly fade away from this world. He had arrived as a silent hero, and planned to leave the same way. But Emily had made her decision. That man should not die alone. His story shouldn't be forgotten in a footnote. Even if he was a hero out of sight, he could still inspire and give hope to others. Even in silence, he was saying something. Maybe not by shouting, but by standing, by looking, by simply being there. And so, that day, Emily began to write. The story of a lonely man, a captain, a soldier fighting once more in the halls of justice. Marv remained silent. But someone was finally listening. The wave Emily started grew in an unexpected way. The silent hero in the courtroom was no longer just a spectator, he had become a legend. Marv's story spread by word of mouth, everyone began rediscovering a long-silenced piece of the past. The heavy air that once filled the courtroom walls had turned into a silence of respect. Officers, young law students, even defendants began looking at Marv with more care, pausing for a moment when he passed. Everyone was aware, this man wasn't just a remnant of the past, he carried a lesson. The arrival of former soldier Paul at the courthouse was a turning point. What he shared revealed that Marv wasn't just a captain following orders in Vietnam. He was a leader who protected his men without hesitation. Paul's trembling voice echoed through the room. "If Marv hadn't been there that night, I wouldn't be here today." Even the judge lowered his head. This wasn't just testimony. It was a living confirmation of history. The ceremony that followed was something entirely different. Accompanied by a military march, Marv stepped onto the stage, wearing his uniform properly for the first time in years. He opened a small box and lifted his medal. The applause that rose from the hall was the sound of long-overdue recognition. People cried. Photos were taken. Children eagerly waited to approach him. Marv smiled, but his eyes were wet. Perhaps not even in war had he ever stood before so many people at once. This was his victory, not won with weapons, but with patience and silence. Emily watched quietly from the side, her eyes filled with tears. Her small investigation had changed Marv's fate. And also the town's. Because this ceremony wasn't just for Marv, it was a tribute to all forgotten heroes. The title the town gave him, Medal Veteran, was the simplest, yet most meaningful expression of their gratitude. It wasn't just a nickname. It was the repair of history. The local museum's decision to exhibit his medal and battlefield map was a way to carry Marv's silent heroism into the future. During the museum's opening ceremony, the appearance of an elderly officer on stage gave the event a new depth. "My unit was surrounded that night," he said with trembling hands. "If you hadn't attacked, we would have died. I owe you. We all do." Marv, for the first time, didn't avert his eyes on stage. They were full of tears, but he stood tall. Because it was the moment the warrior within him stood up one last time. That's how the story ended. But one question remained, echoing in the town square, whispered by visitors in the museum. Have you ever known someone like Marv? A man who became a hero in silence, with only a medal. Because some people don't shout. They don't tell. They simply live. And within their silence, they carry an entire history.